Hey, I'm Paul Rabalais here again, and in this video we're going to talk about estate planning and the 2020 presidential election. All right, so just about everybody these days is talking about the upcoming presidential election, apparently between the incumbent Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So what I want to look at in this video is if Donald Trump gets reelected, how will that affect your overall estate planning as you try to preserve what you have, pass it along to your family? And then we'll also look at if Joe Biden gets elected, how your estate may be affected by Joe Biden winning the presidential election. Well, first thing I'll say is I don't really envision much changing with the kind of how you leave things behind. As far as, the provisions in your will, the provisions in your trust, your power of attorney. Don't really envision much, kind of living will, life support machines. Don't really envision people rushing out to have to change those based on the way the election fell. Although I guess if there is if Joe Biden wins and there's a significant change in our estate tax system that put many more estates subject to the estate tax, more on that in a minute, then that could cause people to go back to their estate planning lawyer and structure their bequests in a way that is more tax advantageous to their family, because now their family is subject to the estate tax. So with that being said, first let's look at what happens if Donald Trump gets reelected. In general, I will say probably not much will change if Donald Trump gets reelected. We have an estate tax. It doesn't get much attention. So few people are affected by the current estate tax regime. We have an $11.58 million exemption. That means when somebody dies, you add up the value of everything that they own. As long as it's under $11.58 million, there's no 40% estate tax. There's no estate tax period. And really what that means is with married couples, each spouse has an estate tax exemption, so that married couple can leave $23 million free of the estate tax. So no need to talk really about strategies to avoid the estate tax, because if you're a married couple with more than $23 million, you're probably not watching this video. Maybe you're out on your yacht somewhere. So, all right, so not much will change. I don't think there'll be much in the way of the income tax changes. I don't see much in the area of capital gains tax changes. Although I will tell you there are tax laws that went into effect when Donald Trump took office. And because of these sunset provisions, they are wiped off the books on January 1st, 2026. But even then, Donald Trump can't be the president in 2026. That's beyond what would have been his second term. So I'm not going to talk too much about that sunset of the tax reductions that would be in effect for 10 years. But what I do want to get to is what would the Joe Biden winning the election, how might that affect just, ordinary middle-class people who have worked and have saved and would like to leave things to their spouse, would like to leave things to their children, maybe even leave something to their grandchildren to get them a head start on life? How would Joe Biden winning the election affect your estate plan? Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on income tax because, income tax certainly is affected by estate planning, but income tax is more while you're working, while you're earning, and not so much that transition of assets to the next generation or two. But I will say that under the Biden plan, for lack of a better name, those earning more than $1 million in income will have their capital gains taxed at ordinary income rates instead of capital gains tax rates. So what that means is, again, affects the people who make a lot of money, more than $1 million a year, when they sell appreciated assets. Instead of paying capital gains tax at roughly a 20% capital gains tax rate, they'll pay capital gains tax at roughly a 40% capital gains tax rate, because that's what their ordinary income rate will be. So be aware of that. But the real significant change that may result because of a Joe Biden winning the presidential election has to do with the capital gains tax, because estate tax, I don't know what he'll do. There is no even, doesn't seem to be any kind of Biden proposal for changing the estate tax. If he did change it, I think he would reduce significantly that estate tax exemption, which is $11.58 million now, scheduled to come back to roughly $6 million in 2026. Wouldn't surprise me if a Biden administration attempted to lower that exemption to maybe $5 million, maybe $3.5 million, maybe less than that. Who knows? It would be pure speculation. But the capital gains tax is really what could have significant changes as a result of Joe Biden winning the presidential election. So under our present system that we have, when you die owning appreciated assets, let's say you bought some real estate for $100,000 20 years ago, and then when you die in the future, it's worth $300,000. You have $200,000 of capital gain, and I'm just being very general here. And if you sell that property before you die, there'll be considerable capital gains tax. But if you hold on to it and then your heirs inherit it when you die, they benefit from this step up in basis. Their basis will be the value of your property on the date that you died. So that $200,000 of appreciation will go untaxed. That's our present capital gains tax structure. It's called the step up in basis. Well, Joe Biden's proposal is to eliminate that and replace it with one of two different scenarios. One scenario is what's called to have the carryover basis at death, and the other scenario is to tax capital gains at death. So let's look at the carryover basis, going back to my example, and maybe Dad bought stock, or maybe Dad bought a company, or he started a company, or maybe he had land. Doesn't matter what the asset is, but he bought it for $100,000 and he died when it was worth $300,000. Again, in our present capital gains tax structure, the heirs inherited at that $300,000 basis. They pay no tax at that time. Then when they sell that asset, they'll pay capital gains tax on the appreciation over the $300,000 that it was worth when they inherited it. Now, under this carryover basis at death scenario, Dad acquired an asset for $100,000. He died when it was worth $300,000. Under this, one of the Joe Biden proposals, which is this carryover basis at death proposal, is then let's say the children or whoever inherits it, the children inherit it at the same or carryover basis that Dad had. So the children's basis in that asset will be $100,000. So if they sell it immediately after Dad dies, $200,000 of gain. If they wait and sell it later, again, they'll pay capital gains tax on everything they receive in excess of $100,000. So that's the carryover basis scenario. It's actually the system we have in place now when a parent, or anyone for that matter, donates property to someone, property, stock, an asset, an appreciated asset. When someone donates property to someone during their lifetime, then the donee, the person it was given to, gets a carryover basis. But at death, when it's acquired, it's a step up in basis. So one of Joe Biden's proposals is a carryover basis at death. Tough to keep track from an accounting standpoint because Dad acquired these things many, many years ago, and now the children are having to keep track of what Dad's basis was, and if they hold on to it and maybe leave it to their grandchildren, now the grandchildren need to know what the grandparents' basis was. A lot of records will need to be kept in a carryover basis at death system. The other Joe Biden proposal is this tax capital gains at death structure. So under that scenario, Dad acquired an asset for $100,000, held it for years. He died. It was worth $300,000. Under this tax capital gains at death scenario, then the heirs have to pay that capital gains tax on that $200,000 of gain. And let's say the capital gains tax rate is 20%. so they'll owe $40,000 because they inherited an asset that had $200,000 of gain. So what that may require in some circumstances is it may require those heirs to be forced to sell the asset that they inherit in order to pay the capital gains tax under that tax capital gains at death system, unless the person who inherits it has enough cash either on the side or inherited some cash to be able to pay that capital gains tax without a forced sale of the asset. This tax capital gains at death scenario, it might encourage some parents, some grandparents to sell assets before they die because they don't want their children to be burdened with that capital gains tax that they'll have to pay immediately when they inherit the property. So you may see some parents choosing, instead of under our current system, never sell appreciated assets and allow the children to enjoy the step up in basis. You may see parents proactively selling appreciated assets before they die to go ahead and take care of that capital gains tax, so it's not a problem that the children have to face. But still, it'll be hard to calculate the tax when the parents die under this tax capital gains at death system, because now the children will have to know what their parents' basis was in the property, and the parents aren't around anymore to help those children calculate the basis of the parents. But again, I guess those are all obstacles that can be overcome. It's just some kind of accounting and record keeping difficulties that are more difficult than we have in our system today, because in our system today, when somebody dies with appreciated assets, who cares what the basis was of the person who died? You just look at the value as of the date of death, and that's the basis moving forward. So the big takeaway is that the election may, especially if Joe Biden wins, it may cause some serious changes to our capital gains tax structure. If Trump wins, probably not much change, because he implemented some changes already when he won in the first term back in 2016. But Joe Biden, his successful election, if he's successful, will likely bring about some significant changes, particularly in the area of the capital gains tax, either in this carryover basis at death, or go ahead and tax the capital gains at death. So there you have it. Make sure you smash the like button. Even if you don't go vote, certainly vote to give this one a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you don't miss anything. I'm estate planning attorney Paul Rabalais, and I approved this message.